Shobhit, I'm going to put you on a spot a little bit and throw a curveball here. IBM is a massive global company. Can you share if and how you're able to deliver the business outcomes with AI for yourself?
We are very proud of the fact that we drink our own champagne. We were at about a 50-50 split between AI automation a couple of years back. Today, we are more at 75% of AI and 25% automation to get those workflows done. IBM has 300,000 employees, and 87% of all promotions last year, we were able to do this without having to go ask questions to a human HR person.
Welcome to CXO Spotlight, powered by Flywheeler, where we explore the strategies, challenges, and innovation shaping the future of business and technology. I'm your host, Chirag Kanijo, co-founder of Flywheeler, and our guest today is Shobhit Varshney, VP and Senior Partner at IBM Consulting, who leads data, AI, and automation business across the Americas. With multiple patents and recognition as 2023 Tech Leader of the Year, Shobhit has helped IBM build a $5 billion book of business in generative AI just in last 18 months. Quite a resume there, Shobhit. Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you so much, man. It's such a great time to be alive.
It is. So do you want to say a little bit about your role at IBM and where you're at in the journey before we get into the questions a bit?
Yeah, sure. IBM is a very large company. As you would imagine, we're about 300,000 people globally, serving clients across every industry. And about 60% of us are IBM Consulting. And in that role, I'm a senior partner accountable for all of the data, AI, and automation work we do. We serve across US, Canada, ATAM, and all the different ecosystem vendors that we work with. So it could be our own IBM technology. We heavily partner with our own stack, but we also have insanely large partnerships with Microsoft, AWS, SAP, Salesforce, Adobe, Palo Alto, and so on and so forth, right? So very much in the hybrid cloud and AI journey with all of our clients.
Yeah, super exciting. Let's get into this discussion a little bit because I want to talk about the AI expectation versus reality gap a little bit that's existing in our market today. So we're seeing enormous interest in AI across enterprises, right? But there seems to be like a significant gap between ambition and actual implementation. So from your perspective, why does this gap exist and how are you seeing it manifest further?
That's a very fair question. And a lot of our board members and C-suites struggle with this. There's a plethora of pilots that everybody has done in the last 2 years, given all the free funding from all the AI vendors. But generally, the principles of how you deploy or leverage an exponential technology like AI or cloud, or digital and stuff, that has fundamentally not changed. So we recently ran a survey with Harris Poll, 2,000 different C-suites with IBM Business Value. There are about 15% of our clients who have truly unlocked measurable value with AI. And those are the leaders of AI. And the other 85% are more of the learners of AI. The thing that differentiates the two is in the leaders, they have been very focused on understanding their own business, getting a strategy top down on how and which areas would they play in, what will it take to go succeed in those, and what will deliver incremental revenue or reduce the costs, right? So if we have an overarching strategy, you then take that true north and you break it down to the next level of saying what will happen to the workflows behind it. For those workflows to change, what will need to be the skills and talent that's needed to transform that. And then you get to the technology and the data and the governance that's needed around it, right? So if you have the true north well-defined, that true north then dictates the rest of the organization and aligns people on where you'll get incremental value. And when you go break these down, these workflows, you realize that there's a surgical mix of AI, generative AI, robotic process automation. And then with these tools, you're trying to re-engineer the process end to end. So the companies that are more of the leaders in AI, they've done a really good job in understanding their business and surgically embedding AI, Gen AI across the thing. Versus there are a lot of clients who have been chasing generic co-pilots or broad productivity, but have not really translated into the meaningful impact that their C-suites were hoping to get to. So there is a switch between the reality of where AI gets deployed in combination with other investments versus people who are on the fringes, dipping their toes. It's good to have citizens across the enterprise experimenting with AI, but in order to unlock real value, you'll need to really look at a meaty process and say, mortgage approval. It takes about 3 weeks to get mortgages approved. What if you could do this in 24 hours? Will that meaningfully move the needle for you? And then you start breaking that down into the processes, the people management, and then talent and the technology loss.
Yeah, very, very smart. I think it's a good strategy to move forward, but I'm sure IBM has a big role to play in this whole journey. And as an ex-IBMer myself, I've seen how many people assume that IBM is fiercely competing in this ecosystem with AWS, SAP, Microsoft, when the reality is that oftentimes IBM is the glue that kind of sort of brings all of them together. So can you talk more about how this ecosystem approaches and shapes your AI strategy?
Absolutely. And a lot of this credit goes to Irvin, our CEO. When he took over, he had just gone through the whole Red Hat acquisition, and we were pivoting our company to be more of a hybrid cloud company. We made some very bold decisions early on, saying that IBM's cloud and IBM's AI will get disconnected. No other major player does this, right? That means that our applications and AI intelligence that we are building for our enterprise clients, those can be deployed anywhere. We have a lot of clients that still have mission critical workflows on workloads that are on-prem or in private clouds. Some are across a hybrid set of clouds. And then increasingly so, there's a lot of SaaS companies that we work with in our ecosystem partners that have a lot of intelligence baked inside of them. So IBM by design, we created a hybrid layer where all the intelligence stays across all the different hyperscalers and the SaaS ecosystem partners. And then an enterprise can go across and own that intellectual property, ensure that there's full transparency to how AI was built, and so on and so forth. IBM then becomes a hybrid cloud and AI company that plays extremely well with the ecosystem partners. Quite often, we'll have our own IBM technology, release certain products, AI products, that will be released on maybe an AWS cloud before we release it on our IBM cloud. We truly believe that clients, enterprises want to own the intellectual property. That's the competitive advantage. And that reduces the vendor lock-in on various clouds. You're free to move your intelligence around and take it to the edge, take it to your private clouds, or on any other hyperscaler. So it's quite a bit of a shift in where IBM has come to the market as a true hybrid company. And I think that we have won that market fairly well. Now the next iteration of it is winning the enterprise AI market, ensuring that when clients are leveraging IBM technology and IBM consulting, they get to build something that is uniquely theirs, that is trained on enterprise data, and that's their intellectual property and they're differentiated in the market.
Yeah, you said enterprise AI. Let's talk about that for a second. So I talk to a lot of enterprise CXOs, CIOs, CTOs on this kind of chat. And they say that the businesses want to move very fast with AI, given the pace of innovation, right? That they want to keep up with that. And IT teams and partners like IBM and other tech providers want to deliver this for them. But then governance is often cited as a major barrier to this AI adoption. How are you helping highly regulated industries implement that security by design while still moving at the speed of innovation that they want?
No, excellent question. And innovation has to be at the speed of trust, right? So it's very important for you to understand what AI, how is the AI trained, where is the data coming from, how do I monitor, manage hallucinations, or how do I ground it in your data, and things of that nature. So IBM has had a really big focus on open, trusted, performant models. So if you just look at the LLM space as an example, IBM has built our own models called the Granite series. And the Granite series covers a plethora of different use cases, from text to code to images to time series and whatnot, right? So our Granite models, we are super transparent on what data went in, very detailed technical details on how we built it. And then we give away our models in open source community, give it back to the community in Apache 2.0 license, which is one of the most permissible licenses you can think of. Enterprises, when they are onboarding our LLMs, Granite, through watsonx.ai, they understand what went into the model in the first place. On top of that, then you have multiple mechanisms of tailoring the AI to your enterprise. So we have something brilliant that we've done with Red Hat and our research called Instruct Lab, which is a mechanism of us allowing enterprises to, with a very low code, no code, and a very iterative process, be able to add skills and knowledge to that particular AI model, to the LLM. And it can be run on more of a laptop grade hardware that can be run down on a daily basis. So we're very much in the camp of smaller, more performant models that are built for a particular domain, have full transparency on what went inside it, and then very easily be able to adapt that model to the enterprise. Now, this is going beyond just fine tuning, right? We're looking at how do you represent enterprise data efficiently and effectively inside of a model. So for example, with reasoning models, we recently released our own Granite reasoning model as well. If you look at the whole hype cycle around O1 and R1 and others, we are able to train intelligence and have it start to reason. Now imagine if you get to a point where an enterprise can figure out how work gets done and the model itself absorbs all of that. So it's not their reasoning from the external world, it's the reasoning from the way processes work in the enterprises that's more important. So let it think, let it come back, let it use tools, think about more agentic flows, and be able to execute tasks inside of an enterprise. So the overarching construct has always been keep it open source. The future of AI is open. The more people contribute to it, the more people understand, the lesser the vulnerabilities are. This was proven very, very clearly with our Red Hat strategy with hybrid. And now we're doing the exact same thing with AI as well. And across all of this, there's a governance layer that again runs on any cloud. You could be running on AWS SageMaker, and you could hook in our what's next governance models, and then you're tracking what's happening in the system. You have all kinds of metrics, hallucination detectors, grounding. There is a whole series of Granite Guardian models that we release as well that help you figure out if the LLM agent picked the wrong tool or fed the wrong information side of the tool. So tool hallucination measures and all of this stuff, right? So there's been a very thoughtful strategy about where the data comes in, what's an extra data across hybrid clouds, what's an extra AI that helps us build the models, and what's an extra governance. That stack of three is what most enterprises leverage in order to scale AI very confidently and trusted manner across multiple use cases.
Yeah. You mentioned models, and when it comes to enterprises, that's the next frontier, which gets very interesting. I mean, it feels like we're living in this AI hyperdrive. Whatever happens in a week feels like months of development in real human life, right? Like DeepSeek's breakthrough. AWS just launched their agentic AI group. China launched Manus, which is now competing with DeepSeek and everything. So for enterprises trying to navigate these, the options are like endless right now. So how should companies actually think when to use small model versus large models, or deciding between, like you said, open model versus the proprietary ones that we know? I mean, I would love if you could kind of share some concrete examples that frame this decision-making process in a simple, practical terms for our listeners.
Okay. So let's take a use case. Say you are a large bank and you're looking at, say, applications coming in for a credit card or invoices coming in, you're processing them, right? So typically you create a pipeline saying that there are like 7 different steps. I'm super simplifying. It's I'm sure hundreds of complex spaghetti steps. Say 7 simple steps to be done. On step number 1, I'm going to go grab a bunch of details from the back end, right? This is just regular APIs calls, right? Step number 3, I may have a fraud detection model that does that makes sure that it's not fraud. It's been working just fine. It's an ML model. Last few years, I leave it as is. Step number 4, I may have a document that I'm reading, right? That document, historically, I've been reading it with an OCR model, optical character reader. Over iterations, they're maybe at 80, 85% accuracy. Now you have the promise of vision LLMs that can read the format of a table, track things with higher accuracy, and so on. So now you're at a point where you have reason to believe that at step number 4, if I surgically embed a generative AI model, I have the opportunity to deliver additional incremental ROI by increasing the accuracy, right? So now you start to figure out what are the non-functional and functional constraints in order to pick the right LLM for that particular use case. So functional constraints would be things like accuracy out of the box, what's the latency of how quickly I can respond to it, and things of that nature, right? So then it matters where I'm running the model. If it's running on a different cloud, there'll obviously be a little bit more latency in how quickly the response comes back versus following the data gravity and bringing the model closer to where the data is, right? So there's some options that you click through and say, oh, I can only look at these set of models because this is where my data is. All of my data sits on AWS. I should probably look at the Nova model, or I should look at Startup Cloud, which will give me, that's the space in the of models that my vendor is providing to me. It'll be rather difficult for you to then say if the data is on AWS, should I run a model that's Google running on Vertex AI, even though like Gemini may be an incredibly great model, but there will be like all these other latency and data security issues switching between the clouds.
Right.
Then you start to look at what's the ROI envelope that I have. So things like I'm reading a document. If I'm doing this 1,000 times in a month versus 1,000,000 times in a month, now all of a sudden my cost envelope and the ROI analysis is very different. So I may fall in love with an amazingly big model, but at the volume that I'm working with, it may be too much for an expense. So then you start to look at a smaller model, which you may get disappointed by the out-of-the-box accuracy. Then you may start fine-tuning it to increase it. But you'll come to a nice happy medium saying, I took this particular Llama model, I converted that, I was able to fine-tune. Now it's at par with what I was using before. So you need to have a good set of evaluation metrics on your specific use cases to then be able to pick a few good athletes. Then there's some other considerations around licensing. Do you have the intellectual property rights behind it? Copyright infringement. For example, if you're using IBM's Granite models, we give you full IP indemnification, which means that we will protect you if something wrong happens. And we're not asking you to indemnify us back in return either, right? So there are all of these things that become critical for different industries. All right. So given all of these different various factors, you narrow down your scope from thousands of potential LLMs into a handful, and you're now down to maybe one or two. And then you run some evaluations on your specific data sets, and you see how fast and how you can work with the model. Just to give you a sense of maybe every 3 months, we end up switching a model for a client. We will typically pick a model and say, hey, we have understood the before and after, the right embeddings we use, the way we transfer the model, the way we talk to it. The style of Claude is very different from OpenAI, as an example. Llama is very different. So you go through all of these different measures and say, all right, now I need to switch my model. Everything before and after has to get switched to. And the last question you have to answer is, do I need to worry about the openness of the model, or is proprietary model okay for me? There's certain use cases where I could send the data out to another cloud and I can use third-party AI where I'm not in the business of getting a better model. Or you could have use cases where you need to bring in an open source model, run it behind the firewalls. If you're running something on-prem, for example, we're working with clients where we have at the edge deployments of LLMs. In vehicle deployments, in factory floors, those will require us to run things that are closer. Smaller models are more efficient. You can fine-tune them easily. You can deploy them at a lower price point, closer to where the data is. So usually we settle down to the data gravity is moving, the gravity of the organizations takes us down to smaller, open, performant models that can deliver ROI, that understand your enterprise, versus larger, beautiful models that may not be able to scale at the price point that I need it to.
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous answer because it kind of breaks down your decision making in three parts, like you said. What I heard is that one is this use case and the outcome that you're looking for. The second one is the governance and the security around it. The third one is my favorite, which you mentioned, is that it's not once and done. You can, in hindsight, you come back after 3 months and see if it's delivering value to you or if there is anything new or which is more efficient or cost efficient for you. Shobhit, I'm going to put you on a spot a little bit and throw a curveball here. IBM is a massive global company. Can you share if and how you're able to deliver the business outcomes with AI for yourself?
We're very proud of the fact that we drink our own champagne. We were at about a 50-50 split between AI automation a couple of years back. Today, we are more at 75% of AI and 25% automation to get those workflows done. IBM has 300,000 employees, and 87% of all promotions last year, we were able to do this without having to go ask questions to a human HR person.
Super. So I think that's a great outcome, but it also helps you, right? That becomes a great blueprint for other enterprises to follow now. So are you getting success with other clients across industries in delivering value at scale with AI? Can you give some specific examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of enterprises have a similar footprint as IBM does. It's complexity across the globe and lots of different vendors, things of that nature. So across each line of business, each industry, we have had some amazing examples where a combination of AI, generative AI, automation, re-engineering the process itself has unlocked amazing value for each one of them. We are working with one of the largest healthcare companies where the incoming interactions used to come in through the voice. And those calls are very expensive and very complex to handle. And CSAT scores are usually much lower when you talk to your healthcare payer. From there, over the last few years, we have completely transformed the way they are serving their members. It's unlocking millions of dollars of value for them on an annual basis. But even better, the CSAT score of the members, they're a lot happier because they are getting more work done at the back end. And it's usually a progression. It's done in waves. You're moving volume over from voice to more digital messaging. You're applying AI, so digital first, AI first strategy. And then you start to move the next wave of going to the voice channel. Now we're doing some multi-agent workflows to help with the more complex conversations that did not quite get resolved with a simple front-end virtual agent, right? So most of our clients have been on this sort of a journey where over the years, we see value getting unlocked, part of that getting replowed back into the next initiatives, and you keep scaling from there. Similarly, we are working with another large benefits administration company where they get millions of records coming in every year, where people are asking for their benefits around compensation, medical, so on and so forth. And these are pretty complex. You go from a paper application to looking at your health records, your service records, you're marrying all of those ICD-10 codes. It's a pretty complex process, right?
Yeah.
What used to take them about 27 days to do, now they can do in 24 hours. That means you're getting back to your end customers and members much faster with appropriate answers, with full breakdown of why this was approved or denied and things of that nature, right? So across each line of business, banks, telcos, a lot of federal governments or state, local education enterprises, there's a crazy number of applications that we have delivered at scale. You should go to ibm.com/client stories and you'll find a lot of examples of where we've delivered quantified value at scale. It takes few iterations to get the right blend of all the technologies, process reengineering and reimagining what your true north looks like. So we're very proud of the work that we do with our enterprises.
Very cool, very good. I want to move on from the examples a little bit. And now I want to explore some of the less discussed aspects of enterprise AI. What should CXOs be worrying about the obvious things like trust, energy, consumption, or ESG goals? And are there any other blind spots in the implementation that exist in enterprise AI today?
Yeah, I think the biggest is around building trust, and trust from the employees and trust from the end consumers as well, right? So trust from the employees means that the AI has to be tailored to the workflows that they're working on, right? So you cannot just say that, hey, you're going to stop logging into the system. Now you're going to only do X and I'll give you a new way of doing things. It has to be surgically embedded, and intelligence has to be available on demand in the specific workflow that you're doing. So adoption from the end employee is very critical to drive actual change in the field. And then on the flip side, on the consumer-facing side, they need to trust the answers that AI is giving as well. So is it grounded in the end? Are you being transparent on what went behind the scenes? What data was it trained on? When you come up with an answer, are you very explicit about where I got the answer from? Is there a good data exhaust coming out so I can mine that data to understand where we need more improvement on the AI, right? So the whole cycle of being able to build the trust, maintain the trust, learn from the data exhaust, and then have that iterative process of continuous improvement. Then there are concerns around what happens about security of the data. Is the data leaving the enterprise? Is the model getting better? And then the model is being shared by other enterprises as well. Is your intellectual property well guarded, right? So all of those start to indicate that you start moving towards open source models that can be deployed behind your firewall. It stays with you. If you are training on a particular topic, it's something that you own. You have clear intellectual property rights over that particular piece, right? So you start to see these concerns start to target you towards open models that you can run behind the enterprise. Same goes for the economic footprint of it. It could be because of sustainability costs. What's the carbon footprint of running the model? How expensive is it? How many times am I running it? And what's the overall total cost of ownership of the entire model? So aligns back to where we started.
Every day I open my laptop and look at things about AI. I see agentic everywhere. And I understand that you were recently at a Gartner session exactly talking about productivity with AI agents. So can you tell us about the current state of AI agents and how they are transforming enterprise, if they are? And is this really different from what we used to know at that RPA wave?
It's a very pertinent question. Like my hot take at the top level is agents are where RAG was about 12 months back. It was great demos on stage. It was stuff that got people excited and say, yes, I can now see an actual use case that's working and this will deliver value. But it took us about 12 months, 18 months to get to a point where we have like 30 plus techniques of how to improve RAG patterns. Now we actually understand unstructured content with tables and borderless images and things of that nature. I can go and read that. I have proper access control to make sure that if Shobhit does not have access to a particular clause in a document, the LLM should respect that when I'm asking LLM the question, right? So it took a while for it to get developed enough to be enterprise ready to deliver value at scale. So today we can put RAG patterns in production with a lot of confidence. We're not quite there with agents yet. So earlier you would go and look at a complex workflow in an organization. You would be called in as a consultant, say, hey, our application approval process is pretty bad. Can you go figure out where there are things to be improved, right? So we would come in and talk to people or experts, or we'll bring some process reengineering tools and we'll figure out here's how work is getting done for maybe 10, 15% of the workflows, because those are the happy parts that people are following. Then we would say, let's get on the whiteboard and draw a better way of doing it, right? And we'll say, hey, this looks beautiful. This is exactly how we should always been doing it. Then we high five and we go pick some robotics process automation tool, some fixed flow tool, and we codify this in that fixed flow, right? So now you're at a point where I have a play button on the top. Somebody wants to get a refund. I click a button and runs through the whole process. It has a decision tree and you're done. That particular process is accomplished. This got us to about 15% of automations across organizations. Because every other time you go to the people and ask them, hey, can you show me how mortgages are approved? They were like, no, it's so complex. I can't quite write all of this down. So we never had a golden thread of how work gets done. So we couldn't quite go and automate those workflows. And then once people are using those workflows, if it gets stuck somewhere, hey, I'm looking at the claim ID, but why was this denied? Then I have to go start from the very beginning and go click, click, click to get there again. So people just get irritated, like, hey, I might as well have done this manually versus asking an RPA bot to do it, right? So 10-15% is the best where we were as a community. Now, the second wave of this is we are looking at a small agent within very small, narrow guidelines and guardrails. Can it make some autonomous decisions where I don't have to document each one of those steps as a decision tree? So as an example, if I ask you, can you book a reservation in a restaurant for my wife and twins? Now, the API that you have access to requires you to pass in the number of people. And the LLM is intelligent enough, says, this equals 4. I'm going to plug into this variable in the API call and I'll go I'll book the reservation, right? So LLM is making some minor decisions. It has some tools on one side. It has an incoming question. It reasons through it. Then it creates a plan. This starts, so now we're at like 35% of automation. Because now for the first time, a human is spending less time clicking through the different screens, but now I'm spending more time going from an ask to a task. And here's the kicker. While you're doing this, we're starting to build a golden record of how ask to task is done in an organization, right? It's the first time in humanity where we have codified and we have a documented workflow that when this ask came in, Shobhit did these series of tasks. That becomes a gold mine for us to train to get to the next way of productivity, which is multi-agent workflows. I'm very excited that towards the end of the year, we will be at a point where we can confidently put multi-agent workflows in production and start to unlock a lot of value. And we're all learning and getting it more and more mature as we scale these up.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So is that what you spoke about at the Gartner event? That was the whole summary of it?
Yes, the ask to task is where we need to focus organizations. And the organizations that can do this successfully are the ones who will win, because the agents themselves will get commoditized. If you look at what Dharmesh did, the HubSpot with agent.ai, you have this whole network and marketplace of agents. I'll be able to get agents from inside of Salesforce Agentforce or ServiceNow or from Azure Copilot. But the layer on top that's managing all of these workflows, that is where you're building intelligence. As enterprises, they need to make sure that that's something that they manage and control, and they own that intellectual property.
Super. All right, let's do something fun now. Are you ready? We are going to do some rapid fire. Yeah? So only one line answers, okay? Most overhyped aspect of enterprise AI right now?
I think it's chatting with data. People make it seem too simple on demos and on stage when I can ask natural language questions and extract data from backend systems. The accuracy of humans is about 93-94% today in writing great SQL statements. The best-in-class models are 70s, 80s at max right now. So there's a long way to go from that being a reality that you can truly understand what the data represents and ask questions against it.
Cool. So what's the one metric that matters most for measuring AI success in enterprise?
I think it's shareholder value. And however you define it. If you're a large organization or you're reporting against revenue or cost, those business metrics are the only thing that really matter. Are you able to move the needle for the shareholder, for the employees, and the way work gets done? So I would say whatever your business metrics are, that's the measure.
Cool. Build your own AI foundation model or leverage existing ones?
I would say take an existing one and adapt it to your enterprise data. There are very few clients that I work with that have to go out and build a foundation model from scratch. But I think the cost of doing that will keep plummeting and we may get to a point where it's easier. But in the current state in 25, pick a best-in-class model and spend time adapting it to your process and to your enterprise data itself.
Tell me one best practice in AI implementation that you completely disagree with.
I think AI governance is one size fits all in a lot of my clients, right? There's one process they're going to follow. And I think that AI has to have different levels of risk and how do you interpret that? There should be different flexible systems for governance in place versus having one strict, rigid way of governing all the AI models. So I think more flexibility and understanding the end impact of the technology, that is more important. That the use cases should be governed and should be flexible to the governance frameworks around that.
All right, this question is on everybody's mind. Will AI eliminate more jobs than it creates, or is this misguided perspective?
So I think it's more nuanced than that. It's more than a zero-sum game. I think the total economic value being generated by humanity is definitely going up over time, right? We saw this through multiple revolutions, industrial and so on and so forth, right? So I believe that the type of work that gets done is going to definitely change. And there will be skills that will be needed to switch people from one role to another role. But I think overall, there'll be higher economic value that's captured and generated than what is today. So the types of roles will change. And I spend a lot of time thinking about my little kids growing up on what should they be trained on? How do they excel in a world where they are in the first AI first generation altogether?
Super, super. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you, Shobhit, for these incredible insights into bridging the AI ambition implementation gap and for challenging some of the assumptions about enterprise AI that I get all the time. Your experience specifically in driving some of the tangible business outcomes that you discussed with through AI and at IBM. It's a very valuable lesson for some of our listeners. So thank you for your time today.
So thanks, Chirag, for having me. It's always been a pleasure watching your show. It's looking forward to our next one. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you. For our listeners who want to learn more, you can follow Shobhit's journey and insight. All links are in the show notes. Stay tuned for more conversations with leaders reshaping technology and business on CXO Spotlight, powered by Flywheeler. Thank you.
To catch more such interesting conversations, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Music.